Ghosts of Tabor can be a very hard game to master. This video I want to share some tips and tricks for improving your skills in the game. Be in mind that just because you improve does not mean you'll never die. Dying is a part of the game. Learn to find your mistakes, improve, and move on. We'll also be looking at some of my own clips that I've recorded and we will break them down. I will break this video down into 3 main parts: knowing the game, knowing yourself, and knowing your opponent. And I'll have subpoints for each of them. So without further ado, let's dive in. Number 1. Knowing the game. Knowing the game comes with time. You have to play the game, you need to get experience, and you'll understand the game more, you'll understand how it works, and you'll just know it better. But I can give you some pointers and tips to help you achieve that faster. Let's start by using sound. Using sound is the most important thing I can tell you. If you take nothing away from this video, that's fine. But use sound. Using sound can be the difference between you walking out alive or you dying. Knowing where an opponent is using sound is one of the best things that you can do. Having a 1-up on your opponent in any type of way is the best. One thing that a lot of people disregard is how much sound they're making. This allows you to pinpoint their exact location, as well as knowing how far or close they are, how fast they're walking, where they're even looking perhaps. Sound cues are the best way to identify an opponent. For example, you might hear an AI walk, but you'll never hear an AI open a backpack, or put something in a box, or open a storage crate, or grab a gun. It can be hard to discern AI from players using exclusively footsteps, but like I said before, hearing a backpack open, grabbing a gun, or anything else always makes a sound. Keep your ears open for those types of sounds. My last point for knowing the game is learning the maps. Knowing where the AI and the PMC spawn can be the best for knowing potential threats. It also helps to strategize. Knowing where players spawn can help you avoid tricky situations. For example, in this layout of Island of Tabor, we have 3 spawns. One on the far end of camp, one just on the outside towards the middle, and one towards the back. Now, if I had spawned in the middle, I could push directly into the camp, but that could leave me potentially pinched between 2 different teams, and that would be a terrible situation to be in. What I could do instead is push around the edge of the map, flank this one team, surprise attack them from behind where they would not expect it, and then push into the center of the camp and wait for the other team to arrive. This would allow me to have a good position and no third party. Also, part of knowing the maps is knowing the loot hotspots and just the general PvP hotspots. Knowing where the loot spawns can be best for understanding where to focus your time and energy. And knowing the PvP hotspots can help you either avoid them or go towards them if you're trying to get those extra mission kills. With that first point out of the way, let's move on to number 2, knowing yourself. Knowing your playstyle is a very big part of playing Ghosts of Tabor and understanding how you play. Are you an aggressive or defensive player? Do you know when to walk away from a fight? Do you know when to have trigger discipline? Do you play with a solo or squad? These are all big questions that can really help you understand the game and understand yourself. Knowing to play aggressive or defensive in different types of situations can really help you win more fights. Sometimes it's better to push and other times it's better to play defensive. Or sometimes it's just better to walk away from a fight entirely. Sometimes it's just not worth your time, and you have to understand that and not think that every fight you need to push. You also need to have trigger discipline because perhaps there's a better shot. Sometimes you might have a shot, but it might not be a good one, and it's not worth losing your position, losing that 1-up you have on your opponent just to get an extra shot off. Also, playing with a solo or a squad can be a very tough choice. I personally play with a solo exclusively. I do not play with any other person. Also, part of knowing yourself is knowing which guns you're good with. Sometimes I look at a gun and think, wow, this is a nice gun, but I'm completely trash with it, so I'm going to avoid it entirely. Sometimes you have to know which guns are better or worse for you personally. A good general reminder for knowing yourself is whenever you enter a raid, know your goal. This is a little bonus tip, but knowing your goal can help you easily complete it and move on. Best way to play the game, I've found. This brings me to my last main point, number 3, knowing your opponent. Knowing your opponent can be very, very good. When you have that 1-up, that's the best, because you know that you will win that fight. You just have to play it smart. One of the best tips for knowing your opponent is being able to predict your opponent. And just as your opponent is predictable, you need to be just as unpredictable. That's why I said flank around the entire map just to get an angle. Stalking your opponent is also a really good way to be able to predict them. Knowing where they're going, what they're doing, having that 1-up is always the best. Make sure your opponent feels uncomfortable, because when people are uncomfortable, they tend to be more erratic. Play the long game. Make them feel safe or too unsafe. If they're too safe, they'll do something stupid. They're too unsafe, they'll do something stupid just in a different way. A good bonus for this one is being able to separate your opponents. you have a squad, you're usually going to lose that fight. But you put them apart, you pick them off one by one, they have no idea where they got shot from. That's where you want to be. You want to be a ghost. No pun intended. One last tip is lose the gear fear. Now, for those of you who don't know, gear fear is essentially the idea of, oh, I found this nice gun in raid. I'm going to keep it in my safe house until I'm good enough to use it. That day will never come. You will never be good enough to use something because you just never feel comfortable. Tabor is always about getting gear, losing it. It's just a cycle. Eventually you'll get something better than what you had before. You just have to keep playing and you just have to use the gear that you have. You can't expect to get big returns if you don't put anything into it. So in this clip, I'm currently looking at the stairs because I heard people come from beneath. I wait, and one comes up. He's dead, but I hear his teammate, so I know his teammate knows exactly where I am. So I rotate and I wait again, but I know that he probably won't push because he knows that I have the upper hand. So I do something unpredictable. I go on the railing and I drop down. He expects me to come from the stairs, not from the top. He's completely unready and unprepared. That's how I got the win. I've shared this clip on my TikTok before, but here I am just casually looting, not being too observant of my surroundings. Big mistake. I go out, I'm just kind of vaguely looking, not being too good, and I hear sounds, but I didn't know what they were. Eventually I learned they were silence shots from the guy down the street. Silencers are very good, and they're kind of overpowered because they essentially make you invisible without really reducing the velocity or the power of the bullet. Him using that silencer, as well as me not being too observant of my surroundings, led to my death. So in this clip, I hear two guys inside the military base. They don't hear me, but then I move a little bit and they can hear me again. So I did something kind of irrational. I pushed them. I probably shouldn't, but I knew where they were, so I decided to take a chance. And it paid off. Now, was this the best thing to do? Probably not. I probably could have played this much smarter, but in the end, I did win. I understood that I play aggressively and that this is how I win. Later in the same clip, I push into the main military base. I hear the keycard door open and I decide to push in because I know I only have a limited amount of time. So I run in and I jump the corner and I see a guy inside. So this is an interesting situation because me and this guy both know exactly where each other are. So I decide the best course of action is to pre-fire the corner. So before I even round the corner, I start shooting. And since I'm lined up with his head, he dies. But I can hear someone walking up the stairs. Those metal stairs on the outside make a very distinct sound. So panicking, I try to grab a gun because I know mine doesn't have much ammo. Grab an M4, pull back the slide. Maybe it wasn't loaded, just wanted to be sure. Jump the corner and I managed to kill him. With these tips, you should be better equipped for those intense situations in Ghosts of Tabor. Like I said before, just because you are getting better does not mean you will never die. I hope this helps you win more gunfights in Tabor and improve at the game. Thanks for watching. No Spirit Wind out.